Well, first of all, thank you all for coming for this screening. I know it's quarter to 10, but you're all rivetedly watching the film. And thank you very much, Ranjan, Rahul, and of course, Aamir, and not forgetting Anurag, who is joining us from Lucknow. Thank you very much, Anurag. I hope you can hear us and see us
Can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
loud and clear.
Okay, sir.
So thank you very much for joining us. I know you're shooting there and probably you had a long, tiring day, but thank you
My
so much for
part,
doing this.
my partner in crime, Sylvester Fonseca, the cinematographer, is also here with me. Yeah, both.
Fantastic. We'll start off with you, Anurag. In the beginning, we saw a thank you, or the film is dedicated to Sudhir Mishra, and Sudhir kind of had told you to write a story set in the 80s, which was somewhat like the character of Kennedy. So tell us about the origins of how it started and Sudhir's involvement.
This is like in 2003, Sudhir hired me to write a film with Sanjay Dutt. You can still find that YouTube video of the launch. Vilasrao Deshmukh came to give the clap for that film with Tejaswini Kolhapure and Sanjay Dutt. It was called Usrat Achanak, and it was kind of the Sanjay Dutt was playing a cop that was inspired by a character from the 80s called Uday Shetty. I did not even change the name. So, and the kind of stories he would tell me about Uday Shetty, but it was not this just him being a character and the film that was built around one night where the cops kind of go on a rampage and then the impact of that night. So that character kind of stayed with me. The film never happened. The film kind of got shelved. The character stayed with me, and I tried many a times to. I did not know. I was very uh, taken in by the character of Kennedy. I was very curious about him. He intrigued me a lot with Uday Shetty, and Uday Shetty intrigued me a lot. And then I always wanted to use him. I've tried many times in the sense I once convinced Rajiv Ravi to that I'll write a film for you, make this in Malayalam. And Rajiv was convinced. I went on to narrate it, but in the sense we were the different scenarios, different times. I was trying to put in Uday Shetty, and then COVID happened, the lockdown happened, all those things happened, and post that I during the lockdown I was writing Maximum City, and 6 day prior to a prep starting on Maximum City, which took 1.5 year of my life to write 3 part 9 hour thing, it got shelved. Since we were just told it's not happening, and the reaction to that was I sat down and I just poured out everything that I was feeling, and what came out was the first draft of Kennedy.
So was the arc of Uday Shetty the same? I read that you called him a ghost in the system,
Yeah.
seeking redemption.
Since the Uday Shetty's characteristics remained the same, but I wrote a whole new film using the same character because the stories that he would tell me, Sudhir told me about Uday Shetty was he was a ghost in the system, which was a fact. He was used by the top police officers to do the job. Uday Shetty was one of the big inspirations behind the idea of the encounter cops. Uday Shetty was also a man who was haunted by what he called his ghosts. And he had a thing of collecting a ring or a watch from everybody that he killed. And he kept them in his drawer. And he talked to imaginary victims of his. Those things were facts about Uday Shetty. Apparently, he's still alive and he's a farmer in Australia. That's the last I have heard of him. But I borrowed from that real life character and put because I needed a fictional character to tell the story that we were trying to tell. And I also was very inspired by uh, a lot of Dardy's comics, a lot of polars, French polar of Jean-Patrick Manchette. Was very inspired by those things, and it just kind of came out. I don't know. It was one very night I was alone in the house in COVID with Tchaikovsky playing with my whiskey. I just what I wrote came. It's like literally like a vomit. It came out, and it just came out.
Right. That brings us to the casting part of it. How did you decide, Anurag, on casting Rahul? You all have worked together, of course, in Ugly, in Dobara, and of course Rahul also went through a big transformation, as we can see in the film. But tell us about how you thought of
My
Rahul.
biggest, my biggest problem with Rahul is such a close friend over the years that I don't think of him. Like, even in Dobara, we were looking for the character in Dobara, and Rahul was sitting on the table. And my producer says, why can't we use him for the role? And I'm like, yeah, why can't we use him for the role? And Rahul was like, thank you so much. And he was like sarcastic. And it happened so, like, the thing is, like, when I was writing Kennedy, because Rahul is also so close, and I share everything I write with him. He reads everything I write with him. So even when I gave it to him to read, and I was telling him that, I have this actor in mind from South, and his real name was Kennedy and all that kind of a thing. And Rahul he doesn't take anything personally. He didn't even say that, why can't I do this? Like always. He's like, yeah, man, let's do this. This is so good and everything and all that kind of a thing. And then it suddenly occurred again, like, this range of Rahul from Ugly to Dobara. Dobara, he plays such a goofy, funny, and also very insecure human being, which is so different from what he did in Ugly. And I know the things that he's capable of doing. So we were just sitting across, and Rahul is very lean, as you can see, right? In my head, I was not very clear how Kennedy has to be. Oh. And this was like, I was waiting on this, and Rahul one day from the gym sent me a picture of his with his long hair, because he was also in the lockdown, and I still have that picture. He said, Rahul, will you play Kennedy? And it was like that. And that picture became the inspiration of the thing. And I said, will you put on weight? I was like, how much weight? It's like, just muscle. Just you have to be like a mass of muscle. And then he started working on that. And he started, like I said, you have to learn how to peel an apple. Like, can you be with a gun? Like, can you just, with your eyes closed, can you open and close, put a gun together? He started practicing all those things, which was around 8 months of prep for him as an actor. While Ranjan and everybody was looking around trying to find, how do we get the money for this film? That's how it happened, which is why Rahul always takes my case. He says, like, yeah, I'm always the guy sitting next to you, and somebody reminds you, and then you look at me.
Well, hopefully that won't happen in the next film round. But but Anurag told his side of the story. We would like to hear your side of the story of when he told you about Kennedy. What was going in your mind, and when he asked you to play Kennedy, how did
No,
you react to
obviously,
it?
when he when I read the script for the first time, I thought that ये तो मैं ही हूँ अंदर से, but I didn't tell him कि ये मैं हूँ. I don't want to impose because he's also such a close friend of mine. So I don't want to impose myself as an actor. And वो मुझे पता नहीं क्या ये actually this is wrong. ये शर्म छोड़नी चाहिए. मैं शर्म में ही मर गया हूँ आज तक कि नहीं मैं नहीं बोलूँगा किसी को भी नहीं. I don't just I keep quiet and but I think that it's important to go out there and tell them hello यार मेरी तरफ भी देखो बहुत हो गया. But Anurag, when he told me that hey why don't you play Kennedy, I was like अंदर से I thought ये खुल जाए खिड़की और मैं जम मारूं और उड़ूं. But I control myself. I said अच्छा करना क्या है क्या
थोड़ा भाव खा के
क्या मतलब what do you how first he told me you have to be thin. He's forgetting that. He told me you have to be thin like a ghost. So he told me nobody should see you and you walk like a ghost, you sit like a ghost. मैं शुरू हो गया thin बनना. मैं बहुत thin हो गया. And I go to him one day again and he said, and he had forgotten by that time. I think his thought process was going on. He's very impulsive. And he said, there is this film called The Bull and you are like a bull.
Then the bullet.
उसको मैंने कहा भाई
Yeah,
the bullhead and bullhead and you're just like a bull and all. And I thought अरे तो thin हो गया हूँ मैं अभी कैसे bull. अब इसको थोड़ी हम मैंने आ रहे हैं bull बन जाते हैं क्या है. And then one day I started working out And one day I sent him that picture. And that picture did the thing actually. He was convinced then. The way he called me and he told me, this is it. We have the look. And I thought, okay, I think now he is convinced. But one thing I must tell you, if he promises something to an actor, he doesn't promise generally. He doesn't say, tu karega. He just gives you a script. He will discuss everything. It might be in his mind, but he won't say it till he doesn't mean it. If he says, I'm doing this with you, then दुनिया इधर की उधर हो जाए, पैसे मिले ना मिले, ये अपना घर बेच देगा लेकिन करेगा. But something that is there with him. And once he told me that you are doing this film, I knew he's going to do it with me. But then one day I get that script, and the script was sent to many great people also. They were there on that, and it was written that two things are non-negotiable. One is Rahul Bhat is Kennedy, and I'm directing it.
How lovely. Talk us about the physical transformation that you went through, and physical as well as mental. I'm sure you had to kind of get into a space to perform this particular character.
Yeah, actually, we talk a lot about the physical thing. Physical, I don't think, it's one can be, one can gain weight, one can lose weight. It's not a, great deal. It just needs a little bit of hard work, like 2, 3, 4 hours in the gym and whatever. Eat well and lose. It's not a great deal. But I think that, see, Anurag has a way of working with the actors. A lot of actors ask me, "Yaar, ye kaise hota hai?" They all want to work with him. So they ask me, they think, "Arey, abhi teesri film kar raha hai, iske saath kya hai?" He has a way of psyching you. And it's not, he doesn't impose himself. It's not imposing at all. So what he does is, he'll give you weird things, like what he told me about the gun, for example, that you be blindfolded and you open and close the gun. The gun has a spring in it, and it's very difficult to actually do that. It's very difficult to do it, when you see it. It's more difficult when you are not even looking at it. So I was sleeping with the gun under my pillow for 6 months. And that itself is, it's kind of it's something. You're sleeping with a real gun under your and I was playing with it. I would get up in the night and I would kind of play with the gun. First month, but second month, slowly it also helps you to build that character, although it's only for a second in the film. But those are the tricks that he has. Like peeling off an apple. Now I am a Kashmiri. Although I have, I was born in an apple orchard. So, but we would go and pick an apple and eat it. I had never peeled an apple in my life with the knife. It was the most difficult thing for me, actually. And I started peeling those apples. I must have peeled like 500 or 600 apples. And then that's how I got. But he said, you have to peel it, magar wo katna nahi chahiye. That was difficult. But these are the small things. They might be small, but I feel that these are the tricks that he has in his, it's him. And then he's kind of nudges you and pushes you towards what he actually wants to achieve. And my role as an actor is always, I live by this rule that I am only playing for the director. I am only trying to reach what he has thought of this as a character. I'm trying to go close to it, as close as I can go. But now every actor has a limitation. औकात उतनी होती है, अब किसी की बहुत ज़्यादा होती है, किसी की कम होती है. But with each film you learn. That's my way of approaching it.
You mentioned small and big things. Anurag, in the film you have small dots and big dots which eventually connect with each other. So talk us about writing, the process of writing the film as well as executing it, in the sense that, you are revealing things one by one. In one of the shots, he takes out the ring, which we know at the end why he's doing that. So there are many things which are revealed one by one, which eventually connect at the end. So talk us about the process of writing it and executing it. Do you think that, okay, audience ko yahan pata chalega ki ye kaun hai, kya hai? Even the characters that come out, whether it's his family, whether it's the commissioner, what's commissioner's role, Salim, all the characters, the way it unfolds. So talk us about your process of unfolding those characters?
I really don't know, in the sense my writing process is very different, in the sense my first draft is always like vomiting. I just put it all down on paper. So the first draft was roughly around 65 pages, right? And then I share it with my team. Like, there is Ranjan, Sylvester, uh, there's a core team, Sakshi, who was my second unit director, and everybody. And I don't write a lot of description because I do not participate in a lot of designing, in the sense, except the opening scene. I did not describe how the film is going to be shot or do everything. I leave a lot to Sylvester. And Sylvester figures out from there on, because it also adds to the film. But I start filling in the gaps in the script after the first draft is done. After the first draft is done, there's questions. This is my first draft I sent out to Vasan Bala, Gevan, a lot of people. They gave me a lot of feedback. Like, Gevan was like, "Why do you want to make this film?" And in the sense, like, haven't you had have haven't you had enough trouble with the government, with everybody, and all that kind of a thing? And then I kept adding on to the script. Eventually, it became a very long draft. And our first cut was 3 hours 27 minutes for the edit. So my final writing happens on the editing table. And when I showed the first cut to my filmmaker friends and people and everybody, and they all saw the film, uh, Varun wrote me a long letter about like what he thought was wrong first cut. And Vasan said one line, Vasan Bala. He said, "You know what? Take out your Twitter from the film." And then I did that. So that was a process of, like, throwing things out. So there's a lot of process till you finally arrive at the film. And a lot of participation comes from everybody, in the sense, the style, the design, the pacing of the film. We all knew the film will have this kind of a pace right from the beginning. We had decided we are not going to cut it down and make it fast paced. And a lot of designing was done by Kazveen and Sylvester. They sat down with Prashant, who's the costume designer. So the color palette and everything else, they worked on it. I try to stay away from it, because for me, I feel like I can add more when I come later. So all that, Sylvester can take you through that process of what he did, how he went along with it. But the film finally found completion when Aamir came on board, because there's a lot that was taken out from the film, but there was a lot that needed to be said. And yes, it was coming out in the compositions and the songs that he was doing, but he was also struggling with the poetry that runs through the film, which actually came in the end after everything. So I think Amir can take you through that process also. Amir and Sylvester can take you through that process of how we arrived at that.
Yes, I think Sylvester can add something to it about, did you have any template in mind of, once you heard the story, once you read the script, and with your conversations with Anurag as to how the film should look?
Yeah, so I mean, we very briefly spoke about the film when he gave me the script, and it was like barely like a 3 to 4 minute conversation about what he was imagining and all. And then beyond that, we stopped speaking, and then we just kind of jam about other things as well. So what happens is we kind of feed off each other, and so he gives me a little, and I give him a little, and then that's how we make magic happen sometimes. I feel like what also happened is because I've lived in Bombay my whole life, I quite imagined Bombay as my muse for this film, and seeing these characters, going through the underbelly of Bombay and all. So I wanted to create like this dark, neo noir world sort of a thing with some colorful pops of color and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was good. I mean, it was quite a technically challenging film that way. So yeah.
Before we come to Amir, Ranjan, tell us about your involvement and your process of making Kennedy.
So I remember reading the first draft around, I think, July 21. My story is a bit different from what Anurag said. I think he had gone to Cannes. He somehow managed to go to Cannes in 21. And then he saw some brilliant films, and then he came back and said, "Boss, abhi I have to do something different." And then I think we got the first draft in some 10 days once he got into writing. And the good thing, or I don't know, the unique thing about that is that those 80 pages still are there in the film, which is rare with him because most of his scripts keep changing till the shoot. So I think it really came from inside. And then I think the next month we were just finishing our last film, and it actually took us just 2 months to get Z on board, and Sharik and Bhumika, Neeraj, all those guys, they loved it. And I think we were on in like about 3 months. And I think the most then effort came from Rahul because he had to, bulk up. And like he said, first he was thin and then he had to bulk up. So we actually then started shoot in April 2022. And that's how. So we were actually shooting all the COVID scenes post-COVID. So that was a bit of a challenge where, we were telling people to put on masks when they were wanting to remove it. So yeah, and then it's about 40 days. We ended up, I think, June. And yeah, that's about it. Then the edit, and then next year we were at premiered at Cannes.
I think Aamir can throw some light about the music part. You not only wrote the songs, but you also composed them. So talk us about the role of music in the film and how you arrived at what you arrived at.
In the beginning, I think Anurag called me, and I don't know, there was not any clear conversation. He just called me home, and there was this very young rapper, my partner, boy blank, Raghav, his real name is. So basically, I was there to write to begin with. But I saw the film, he showed me the film. We spoke very briefly, like Sylvester also said. We spoke very briefly, not much. And but I was living with him. I was living at his house for almost 6 months or so. For me, personally, what we have not spoken, like I and Anurag as well, is I asked him that, what should I do? Because I have never written songs in films. So I thought that he'll give me some situations कि इधर hero heroine ऐसा कुछ कर रहा है इधर गाना लिख. But he said that अगर मेरे को पता होता तुझे क्यों बुलाता मैं. So then I knew what it is. So yeah, but for me, there were two things that took me in the very beginning. First was the character itself, Kennedy. Another was Tchaikovsky's background. So I understood that it's a character piece. And I don't know, if I try to articulate it, it was a film based in lockdown. And we all know the sufferings of lockdown, and we all have faced through it. And for in that time also, all kind of political sectors have gone on to toss. Things were happening on its own almost. So yeah, I started to kind of pick up the ambience of the lockdown from my own experience with character. So yeah, that was my line, that something which I can somehow, if I can imprint the time as well as while keeping the character somewhere within. That's how I started, and things, it became what it became. Songs didn't take us long time, but the poem, but it took me a very, very long time. I think the film was almost ready for Cannes, and 3 days ago or 5 days something, I given them the poem. It took me the most time, 6 months almost, to come up with those lines.
Right. Anurag, I wanted to ask you that when you're making the film, how much of music is in your head, in the sense of what kind of music you want? Did you have it in mind while making the film that, certain places you'll have classical music, chamber music?
Not always, but this film I had. Tchaikovsky was definitely at the back of my mind. But I wanted to record it. We didn't have the budget for it. We did not There was no money for it. Whatever money we saved, we spent on. We went to Prague and recorded with Adam Clemens. We had Ashish Narula who was helping with Amir was doing music for the first time. Boy Blank was doing music for the first time. He was helping them. He was the guy who was putting things together. Ashish was also instrumental during Bombay Velvet when we were recording the music. So he knew where all, like London was very expensive and everything. So we had to find a good 80 to 100 piece orchestra, a good conductor, somebody who can do it within our budget, within that many days. So there's a lot of work that went in there. And Tchaikovsky was always there, and we took influence from there. In the script, if you read, what I wanted to do with music was very different initially. We couldn't do it because we had to get rights for something which we could not afford. That's when I was very kind of depressed. I was like, I really need music that speaks for the character, because the character doesn't speak for himself. So that's when I came across Aamir's poetry on YouTube. I reached out to Aamir. Boy Blank was just a boy in his teens. He was just doing music for himself. One day, while coming back from the shoot, I was sleeping and my niece was playing his music in the car. And I said, "Who's this?" And I had to call him. I said, and he's like, "I can't come. I have my exams. My parents won't let me go. My parents don't know I do music." I said, "Can I speak to your parents?" And then I spoke to the parents, and the parents insisted to talk to me on video call to know that I'm not a con. And then I had to speak to them on a video. I said, and they said, "Where will he stay?" He said, I told them he'll stay at my house. So I called him. He stayed at my house. Aamir moved in, and every day we would go to shoot, and Aamir and him would jam. I think they jammed for a very long time. He was a boy who was writing song about teenage angst. Aamir was political. I think they both kind of rubbed off on each other, and they both had some impact on each other. And Aamir probably had more impact on him because Boy Blank has totally changed. His how music has changed totally. But they were always at home. So I would leave home and they would be there. I would come back home from the shoot and they would be there, and they would keep trying. And when they started coming up with the songs, it suddenly was very quick. Every day they had a new song. They had far too many songs than I needed. The original song, the title song is something Aamir had composed for himself long time back. And I wanted Aamir to perform. Aamir also is an actor. So I wanted him to perform too. And then me and Prashant and Sylvester and everybody sat down and came with the idea of the kabuki mask and that whole dress and everything. And I don't know, some kind of a spirit got into Aamir that day of the performance. And some kind of a spirit got into him, and he just kind of killed it. It was all a very slow process. But Tchaikovsky was always at the back of the mind, but I think that influenced a lot of other choices of music.
Right. I'll ask a couple of questions and then we'll throw it open to the audience. I'd like to ask Sylvester a little bit more about the cinematography aspect of it. You know, there were a lot of indoors, there were a lot of outdoors, and I'm sure there was a lot of coordination with the production team as well for the color palettes, the lighting, etc. So can you throw some light on that, please?
Yeah, so when we started designing the film, me, the Kazveen, who's the production designer, and also Prashant, who did the costumes for the film, we actually sat together and we kind of designed this whole world of Kennedy, where we were all thinking about, okay, what will the color scheme be, and how we will add these pops of colors and create this kind of world which has these colors, but at the same time is very, I mean, there is certain glum to it. If you see, there's like even though there's daylight, there is certain sadness to the daylight. It's not like very a happy feeling. So these kind of conscious decisions we had taken while shooting and while we were doing prep as well. And thankfully, with the help of the production design, I feel like we've achieved quite a bit of it. In terms of the camera language, I remember like the music, as he was saying, because we had a music track that we could listen to. The pace of the music track, uh, also influenced the kind of the tracking, the speed of the tracking shots. I feel like all of that really comes together when you have something to begin with. Yeah. And yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Anurag, one question before we throw it open to the audience. You know, when it comes to assassins and cops and those kind of characters, I know everybody knows that you're a big cinephile. You watch cinema from all around the world, and uh, it reminded me a lot of Jean-Pierre Melville's films, whether it's Les Samurai or Dolo or Own Flick. So did that have any kind of influence on it? Like if Melville's films always had a hat on in this main characters, you always had Kennedy in a suit.
Melville has always been a massive. See, Melville मैंने घोटा हुआ है. You know, Melville is like one of my favorite filmmakers. Oh, I don't know. I did something. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see and hear you.
Okay. So Melville तो मैंने घोटा हुआ है. So Melville is somebody that is always there at the back of my mind. So and for me, all Melville films are like a big chase. And the thing is, I treat every film like a suspense film. You know, every story, everything, things have to unravel themselves. Things have to reveal themselves slowly. Like you come to know what the film is about only when the film ends. And I try to leave it open-ended. Because, you know, that's when you take it with you. So वो सारे elements जो है कहाँ से आए subconsciously या किधर से I can't pinpoint. But I can definitely tell you that the big role that was played in this film was Tardy's adaptation of Jean-Patrick Manchet's novel, his comic books. Like the frame where with a blindfold, he's practicing the gun, opening and closing the gun is a straight lift from one of the panels of the comic book of Jean-Patrick Manchet and Tardy. It's a straight, I just wanted to recreate a panel as a tribute. Just one panel he recreated to know. And if you read Manchet, then Manchet is about, they're very thin books and they're called polar, not noir, polar. Polar is a police noir. So the polars are the police noir and it's a very French thing. And I wanted to use that element. I wanted to use that element of the rot within the system. And so I started writing it, not thinking of them as police officers. Since they happen to be police officers, it creates a different impact. But while writing, I had to stop thinking that they're police officers. So all those elements somehow kind of feel like, you know, they just come in together. And like Ranjan reminded me correctly, it's like 2021, I just wanted to take a break. So I took a month holiday in the month of May and June, and I went to Cannes, and from there I went to Iceland. And I saw a lot of very young filmmakers, new filmmakers, being very brave. And I was like, you know, I was going through a lot of struggle within self because of the external things, because of my Twitter, because of my problems, because of the raids that were happening on me, because of my things getting shelved, because of constant problems my films were facing, not getting completed or getting tampered with. So all those things were kind of pulling me down to the point that I, at one point, decided that, listen, even if I have to survive and I have to keep my things going, I did a remake, which in my life I had sworn I will never do a remake in my life. Whatever happens, I'm a filmmaker, I'll not do a remake. But I did a remake. And I was like, okay, let's pick up a film. Out of all the films offered to me on a plate for a remake, I picked up a film that didn't work on the box office. So I said, you know, the idea is good. Let's try and see wherever the filmmaker went wrong. Let's try and fix those things. So we tried our best to do that, and that was Dobara. But I was inside. I've been dying for last 4-5 years. Like, you know, कि जो बनाना चाहता Maximum City, I couldn't do it. Two of the films that I wrote that were written, the scripts were ready. One I wrote in 2016, another one that was written in 2019-20. Both the films I'm making this year. One I finished and one I'm finishing in Lucknow. We are shooting in Lucknow. So like now it's like suddenly with Kennedy, it's like I was finding my way back, and Kennedy was that door through which I needed to step out and find my way back. And now I'm enjoying myself because it's like literally finishing Kennedy. I did not know what to do, and I did not want to do another film that I that was kind of forced onto me, or that was I was doing under some kind of a pressure. So last whole year I decided to act. I just started acting. I was like, I'll act and I'll make money, but I will not do a film that I don't want to do anymore, or it's not totally in my control. And suddenly, then everything started to happen after Kennedy. And this year, we have been shooting non-stop, like non-stop, non-stop. And by December, we'll actually have 3 films done.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
it has been a kind of a again coming around. It's like I've gone through this phase 3 times in my life now. Like a total downer, and then you pull yourself out of it. Then you go through a total downer, then you pull yourself out of it. And this is literally my third coming. In the sense, to me, the third time I've felt like I hit rock bottom emotionally and personally, and then crawled my way back up. And again finding my voice, and again feeling better. But then that's I think all filmmakers go through that.
Well, hopefully the downer is the third and the last time, and
I don't
and
think that. I think that it keeps happening. You look at the filmmakers we admire. Like everybody goes through it.
right.
The
I think
filmmaker
we'll.
who
Sorry,
inspired all
please.
of us. No, the filmmaker who's inspired all of us is right now everybody's trashing him for Megalopolis, and he's gone and spent his own money. He's not spent anybody else's money and made what he wanted to make, and people just just go after somebody. And I've gone through that, and I think it never stops. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. As I have a lot of filmmakers friends across the world, and they've all been through that, and they keep going through that. Everybody goes up and down because it is not really about them. They keep doing what they want to do. They attempt to do what they want to do, but the what happens is, if one film or 2 film, and unfortunately with more than 2 3 films that people really fall in love with, then the expectations from you become a killer, and then their expectations from you to repeat the same experience becomes even worse for you as a filmmaker. And you have to stop thinking about it, and you have to step away from it and keep reinventing yourself and keep finding new ways to do things, or just stick to what you do, and the consequences are yours. So those things never end. And this is I definitely can't say it was probably third time. Maybe there'll be fourth time. But the thing is, you know that there's nothing else that you want to do in life except making movies.
Right. Just before the audience asks a question, how do you go from down to up? I mean, is you just wait it out, or what do you do?
No, it's most important are the people who actually really believe in you, and they are the ones who don't give up on you, and they don't allow you to give up on you. And in my case is people like Rahul, Ranjan, Aamir is also now, it's like my brother, but there's also Varun, Vasanbala. They don't give up. Like Varun wrote me a mail which I read like I don't know how many times. And only a friend, an honest friend who really cares can write such a strong mail that kind of pulls you up. Lijo wrote me a mail after he saw Choked, and he said, I can see that you're losing yourself. I can see I can see the remnants of the Anurag that I have admired, but I can also see the decline that he's not you're not seeing right now. I save these mails from my friends. And these are filmmakers. I admire the filmmakers from across the world. Like Fatih wrote me a message, and he was like, you're holding yourself back. You're holding yourself back. What are you scared of? What's the worst that could happen? Don't hold yourself back. So, these are the people who help you pull yourself up a little bit. And then you have to mentally decide that you need to come out of it. You need to start getting out of it. Like I've been dealing with it, and now it's like I'm many days sober, and I can see the difference in me. I can see the difference in me. I can see the way I'm back on my feet and like loving every moment of what we are creating and we are doing things the same way we used to do, like go in and see what are the possibilities, and not hold back, and go all out, and not be scared of anything, and not be scared of the consequences. And I, for 7 years, I stayed away from, I'm in Lucknow, I stayed away from after Mukkabaz, even though I had script. And this is my state. This is where I was born. This is where I've lived. This is what I know as like the back of my hand. And I was like, I'm not going to North India because North India is gonna lynch me. But in the sense, I said, I'm gonna go there and I'll make this film. And we decided, and we came here, and we're making this film. So those are the kind of things that, you find again and again.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience. Anurag, probably you know that they've been here from 6:30 onwards. It's 10:45 now, so they've had a good 4 hours of Kennedy. So, and there's a sizable crowd that has gathered here. So thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Sylvester. Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you, Rahul. And thank you, Aamir. And thanks once again to the audience. I hope you all enjoyed the film and had a wonderful evening here at G5A. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for screening this. Hopefully we'll release it soon. Ranjan is at it.